spiritual food for thought.
There's a certain man in Scripture, originally called Abram, eventually had his name changed to Abraham, and that's usually how we refer to him. But he was one who was called a friend of God. Interestingly enough, that's mentioned at least on 3 different occasions. Here in James chapter 2, verse 23, says, "And the scripture was fulfilled, which saith, Abraham believed God, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness. And he was called the friend of God." Back in Isaiah chapter 41, verse 8, says, "But thou, Israel, art my servant Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend." And likewise, back in 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 7, "Art not thou our God, who didst drive out the inhabitants of this land before thy people Israel, and gavest it to the seed of Abraham, thy friend forever?" Now it was Abraham who was called a friend of God, at least three times. At least these 3 times it's specifically mentioned, and he's referred to as the friend of God. Now we know that it was his faith, the fact that he was willing to trust God and have that faith to believe that then he was able to do certain things because he believed God. But when he believed God, it was imputed unto him as righteousness. But there's something else that I want to focus on in the life of Abraham. It's something that's mentioned early on in Scripture. And you may remember there was a time when Lot and Abraham were splitting up. They had 2 different directions that they could go in. Lot decided to head towards Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham didn't. And an interesting thing happens and is revealed before God judges Sodom and Gomorrah. If you remember, Abraham got these 3 visitors, and the men rose up from thence and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on their way. Genesis chapter 18, verse 16. Continuing, "And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I know him, that he will command his children, and his household after him, and they shall keep the ways of the Lord, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken of him." So here, verse 19, when he says, "For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, they shall keep the ways of the Lord." That's the part I want to focus on today. Speak to men, fathers, parents. We have an opportunity, especially the men, the fathers, the husbands, as the spiritual leaders of our family, to either seek what God would have for us or not. Yes, money must be earned and bills must be paid. Yes, food must be put on the table. A house must be warm in the winter. People should wear clothes. And there's many things that we can enjoy doing, whether it's golfing or fishing or watching sports or whatever it may be. But ultimately, there's a lot of things that God has not entrusted to us in the way that he has our family, their spiritual well-being. I just wanted to make this short video today to encourage you that if God knows anything of you, would he know that you're the type of man who's going to teach and train your children to know who God is, to choose to obey God, that his ways are better than all the other options that the world has to offer? Thankfully, by being rather honest with my kids, I've been able to explain to them where a lot of the other paths in this world lead. I hope that they can learn from my mistakes, not choose those paths for themselves. But in looking at all the different ways that a man can wander, all the different paths that men can take, I've come to the point where I do believe wholeheartedly that God's way is best. And from that standpoint, I want to properly lead my family, to know him as well, to understand the things that he says, and to choose to obey him. If God can say anything of what he knows of me, I would hope that it would be that. And that I can testify as well, that that's not my idea. That's not where I started out. I didn't want to be a husband. I didn't want to be a father. I didn't realize I needed to be reconciled to my God through the precious blood of his Son. But I pray that I could know him and he could know me. And the one thing he would know about me is that I'm going to heed that desire, that goal, to be faithful in that stewardship of this family that he's entrusted to me. So hopefully that's some good food for thought for some of you guys out there. Have the faith. Be a friend of God. But also, lead your family appropriately and properly as the Lord leads you. Be blessed.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.